Welcome all hunters, anglers, trappers, and shooters to the only fish and wildlife conservation podcast that goes behind the scenes of the business of conservation, the Connecting with Conservation podcast. Our podcast is hosted by John Gassett from the Wildlife Management Institute and Jim Cucaruto of the Outdoor Stewards of Conservation Foundation. John and Jim will talk with experts from all sectors of the conservation arena about their passion for conserving the great outdoors. So please welcome our hosts of the Connecting with Conservation podcast, John and Jim.
Welcome to Connecting with Conservation. I'm John Gassett with the Wildlife Management Institute and your co-host for the show. And I'm here with my co-host, Jim Cucaruto. Jim?
Hey, guys. How's everybody doing?
Good.
All right. I'm excited about this one here. Today we've got, Connecting with Conservation. We try to hit three main parts, right? We got the wildlife agencies, we've got the industry, and we've got NGOs. So we've covered all of them, but, the industry is near and dear to my heart because, as we know, they pay excise taxes, but it's not just the manufacturers. There's a bigger part to the industry out there. There's all sorts of different ways that they can support conservation, and that's what Connecting with Conservation is about, is telling those stories. So today we've got kind of that second tier of the industry that doesn't pay the excise tax initially, but they've got the product that makes it easier for folks to do that. And we've got Kevin Wilson from Davidson's to talk a little bit about that. So Kevin, how you doing?
I'm great, man. I appreciate you having me on.
So why don't you tell us a little bit first about yourself, and then we'll get into Davidson's. And
well, about myself, I was, it's kind of funny. I was born and raised in North Carolina, and been around guns for a long time. My grandfather had a tobacco farm when I was growing up, and it was a farm tool. So you had a shotgun behind the door, you had a .22 rifle, whatever it may be. But I really got into it later in life. I was running a small business in North Carolina, and we had a break-in, and I was having to be there 9, 10 o'clock at night, and I got to thinking, I might ought to think about this. So like a lot of people, I got involved in self-defense on that side of the firearms and concealed carry permit and whatnot. And naturally, since I was kind of part of that world anyway, I immediately went for training as much as possible and learned everything I possibly could about it and became really hardcore about it. And then I kind of got lucky. I was in between jobs for a minute and had the good fortune of coming on working for Davidson's. And I started with Davidson's in North Carolina. And for those that don't know, Davidson's is a national wholesaler, firearms, ammunition, optics, accessories, etc. So I started with Davidson's back in 2012. Started out in the marketing department doing press releases, working on scripts for TV shows, doing digital content. And then I had the opportunity to go on the road for Davidson's in sales. So I would actually call on FFL retailers all day, every day. I had about 10 states to cover. And that was quite the education, probably one of the best things I ever did, because I learned what our customers need and how they operate. And I did that for about 3 years. And then the president of the company called me. He said, I'd like you to move to Arizona. We have facilities in both states. So I came out here, February will be 7 years ago, and got back into the content side of it. And I do, all of our social media channels. I do what we call the communication center on the dealer website, which is kind of like a blog. And then we started doing live streams about 4 years ago. And so we have Davidson's live, and we also have Gallery of Guns live. And I guess we'll get into that a little later. So I've been doing that for about 4 years now, but I just absolutely love this industry, and I can't think of a better place to be.
Good deal, Kevin. So just so I'm clear, Davidson's is sort of the import, not the importer, but the wholesaler, sort of between the manufacturers and retailers. But you have an online retail storefront too, and that's Gallery of Guns, correct?
Yeah, the wholesale part of it is we sell and ship to FFL retailers nationwide. But something that we started, probably 20 years ago or better, was the consumer side, which is galleryofguns.com. And what that does, we started it for a couple of reasons. The main reason was to support those local FFL retailers and do some marketing for them and send them some business. But the other side of it is on the consumer side, you get to shop our inventory. Because if you think about it, an FFL retailer, he's limited in space. He can only have so much in stock. And he's not going to stock one of everything that's made. Well, we have, 130 plus brands that we carry. So a consumer can go to galleryofguns.com, shop our inventory, and then what we'll do is we'll show them, here's all the local dealers within 25 miles, 50 miles of your zip code, and you select which dealer you want to work with, and that's who we're going to ship the gun to. And we consider that as a sale for that dealer. So unlike some online places, you're never going to pay a transfer fee because we're actually selling that to your local dealer. And then you go to that dealer, you follow all the NICS checks, all the paperwork. It's all above board and legit. We're not sending guns to anybody's house. And so we're supporting our retailer, but we're also giving the consumer the chance to look through our inventory. And if you're looking for that special thing, you can find it from us, have it shipped to your local retailer, and that's where you do the sale.
Yeah. So you're sort of like one of those, I won't use the name, but the A word of, you're a wholesale facility that provides your entire inventory basically as, for sale through those retailers. You just have the online storefront, you purchase it there, goes to my local retailer where I go do my 4473 and I pick it up just like I bought it from them. Well, that's interesting because I do, for our listeners, do want to dispel the constant myth we battle, and that's that you can buy a firearm online and have it shipped directly to your door. No, you can't. And you can, unless you have a federal firearms license, you can't do that. But you hear it on the news almost weekly. You hear people on chat rooms talking about it, and it just doesn't happen. It happens the way you describe. It goes to an FFL licensed FFL federal firearms licensee, and they make the transaction just like they would in any other gun store. So.
Right. And the thing is, we're not saying all consumers have to buy through galleryofguns.com. We want you going to your local FFL retailer because they're already buying from us anyway. But if you're looking for something maybe they don't stock, or you're just looking for something, a little different, then you can come and shop our inventory, but it's still going to go through your local FFL.
Gotcha. So you guys, got a broad mix of product lines. Are you seeing any, trends, with what consumers want right now? Is it handguns? You mentioned personal protection. That seems to be always a hot item, or long guns or hunting guns or anything like that, hot right now.
Well, I think what's been hot for a decade or more is concealed carry and home defense firearms. So you're looking at pistols or revolvers that are carryable, and a lot of home defense shotguns. That is just seems to always be steady. But there's a lot taken off in the competition world, long range shooting in the last several years, 3-gun over the last decade or so. And that's something I encourage first-time firearms owners to look at and to learn about, because there's a lot more to this community than buying a pistol and putting it in a nightstand strongbox and never touching it again. So get the training, get involved, get it with the community. There's so many resources out there that are available. And you'll find out that some of this is just plain fun. You go to the range, recreational shooting, competition. not to mention hunting, which is a large part about the conversation, the conservation topic. But there's a lot to it. There's a place for everybody in this world.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we tried when I was with NSSF. And I first quantified the number of first-time gun owners. It was, 10 million. Back right after COVID. I think we're up to over 23 million first-time gun buyers, but the vast majority semi-automatic handgun for personal protection. So we tried to work through, Davidsons and FFLs and explain to the end user, yeah, you're buying that gun for a specific purpose, but you may want to be out there and become proficient with it. And you can do that by joining a league, having fun, because if you ever have to use that firearm for that intended purpose of self-defense, you want to be prepared. You can't just buy that gun, shoot it once, and I'm ready to go, right? So, but, whether it's buying for personal protection or buying for target shooting or recreational or whatever, that all goes to conservation, right, John?
That's right. Over $1 billion a year in excise taxes. And I tell you, the states couldn't operate and couldn't provide, wildlife management areas, good habitat on the ground, shooting range access, public shooting range, all that stuff is funded by those excise tax dollars. So we always love to thank our partners on the industry side for their sort of unsung contribution to conservation, because it's a big chunk of what we do on the state side.
Right. And then it's, like I said, there's a lot of tiers. It's not just Ruger, Smith and Wesson, Mossberg that, are doing it. It's the Davidsons and making it easier and more options, because, gun owners don't just own one gun. So, looking around, look at that. That's pretty cool, and talking about pretty cool, let's talk about the Davidson's exclusives and tell people about, how that came about and what that product line is all about there.
Yeah, that's something we're kind of known for, and we've done forever. We're gun people too. We're enthusiasts. We're not just, coming to a job 8 to 5. So we have ideas just like anybody else, and we'll see a gun and we'll think, what would be really cool is if that gun had this, and maybe we changed it this part, or maybe it had this caliber. So we work with the manufacturers directly, and we sit down and we come up with ideas. And it's kind of like, you take a pad and a pen out and you sketch out, this is kind of what we would like to see. And then we work with the manufacturers to have them build it for us, and that becomes a Davidson's exclusive. And so there are certain configurations that we have that you cannot get anywhere else, hence exclusive. But it's a lot of fun to do that. And the manufacturers, by and large, are very willing and eager to work with us on that. So we've got a reputation for coming out with some really cool stuff.
That's pretty interesting, because it's, Jim and I used to participate in, and actually we headed up for a number of years an annual meeting where we brought industry folks and agency folks together just to make sure the machine was running well. And we kept the oil changed, but we always tried to package it with a tour of a factory or whatever. And we're actually in your state now, in Arizona. I won't mention the company, but a very prominent archery manufacturer there. And the CEO was giving us the tour, and he told the story about that sort of innovation you just mentioned. And he said he walked in one day and he told his engineers, he says, "You've got all weekend." He brought an AR-15 in. He said, "You got all weekend, but I want a design to put a crossbow on this AR lower." And by Monday morning, he had a prototype crossbow on an AR lower. And, it was a thing for a while. And I don't know if they're still selling them or not, but it was like, the amount of innovation in this business is just incredible. Anything you can think of, somebody in our business can create if it relates to a firearm. So, yeah.
And I know you also talked about target shooting, right? And you're a big target shooter, but target shooters are big funders of conservation, and that money doesn't just go to conservation. When you buy ammunition, a percentage of that goes right back to the state wildlife agencies, and they built or enhanced, almost 800 ranges nationwide with excise tax dollars from those target shooters, from hunters, from Davidson's, the exclusives. They're, you've got some ones for, precision and long range and target shooting, but you also, I think you got some collectibles on there that, you might never shoot, but you're still buying that firearm that you wouldn't have bought if you didn't make it, right? And that still goes back there to support conservation. So let's talk about, your target shooting a little bit as well. So what's your favorite thing to do out there on the range?
Oh, that's hard. That's hard to narrow down.
All of it.
Yeah, all of it, really. The first time you shoot 1,000 yards, you just get this big grin on your face. But if you clear in a plate rack with a pistol, it's every bit as fun to me. I like shooting clays. You name it. There's nothing in the shooting disciplines that I've ever looked at and said, yeah, that's not for me. Now, I'm not going to say I'm good at all of it, but no, I enjoy every bit of it. And that's why I always emphasize to gun owners, there is so much you can do. And Jim, you alluded to it. What you're doing is getting more and more proficient with whichever discipline you choose. And that's never a bad thing. If you're going to own a firearm, be very proficient, be very safe. Competition world, for instance, such emphasis on safety long before they start looking at scores or anything like that. So just firearms handling, firearms safety, and proficiency. So many ways to get that. You don't have to go to a school or anything like that. There's so many activities that you can get involved in that just naturally a byproduct of that is proficiency. So there's not a category you can name that I don't enjoy.
Well, that's, I think that point can't be overstated that we love it when people buy firearms. That's our Second Amendment right. We do it. A lot of us do it to excess probably, but, we also want people to take them out and use them, go to the range, learn the equipment. You wouldn't buy a chainsaw and, never practice with it, never take any lessons, never get any instructions and try to go use it for the first time. You'll cut your arm off, But yet people will buy firearms and stick them in like you said, in the nightstand or whatever. And, maybe never go to the range with it, never pulled the trigger. But, to me, that's it's a missed opportunity, and it's a missed for us, and it's a missed opportunity for them to learn their equipment. So, what do you see in, just to change gears a little bit, what are you seeing in the sort of the AR arena now? Because I'm an AR builder. That's one of my passions. I love putting things together and designing things. So, but it seems, I've sort of seen this over the past probably 15, 20 years that, the generations that we deal with now, the younger generations buying firearms, they're more utilitarian, practical, where I want, my granddad's old, Winchester Model 70 or, A5 Browning, they want an AR-15 that they got a 22 barrel on, they make a 30 caliber barrel on, they may have a blackout with a suppressor, and I always call them the erector sets of firearms. One platform, and you can change whatever you make it whatever you want. So are you seeing that in your sales, or, people gravitate towards that platform more?
I think that kind of thing, it's kind of a pendulum. Forever we've seen black polymer semi-automatic striker-fired pistols. And just in the last few years, you've seen a resurgence in revolvers. So I think that kind of goes back and forth. I don't think ARs will ever be unpopular because, like you say, they're so customizable and they're easy to get good with, I think. But the AR market is always going to be strong, but that demand goes up and down depending on circumstances, depending on the environment. If people try to tell you you can't have one, sales goes up because Americans are a defiant people. But no, I think ARs will always be popular. We see swings in the price ranges. Sometimes the higher ends are extremely popular. Sometimes people all I want is a $500 AR. It kind of goes back and forth. But I think once people get into any platform, they're going to broaden that that category. So if you get a $400 or $500 AR, and I got nothing against them, I got a couple myself. And once you go out shooting and maybe get involved, like we said, in some competition, or even if it's just friendly competition, I really wish I had this, or I wish I had this, and you start bumping up, and next thing you know, you become like us, where you got to say full of stuff. But no, I don't see ARs going anywhere as far as popularity. I mean, they're cemented as America's rifle.
Yeah, I think last time I looked at it, counted them up, there's over 23 million sold or something like that since 1990. So, and I think it's one of the fastest or highest percentage purchased rifles still out there year over year. So it's a big market, but yeah, there's a lot of companies making them and stuff. But it kind of reminds me too, is they, in the news, whatever, they look scary or whatever, but even to, some gun owners, that don't own them, they might say, I don't know much about them. And that's kind of where talking about broadening the tent at Outdoor Stewards Conservation Foundation, we want people to get outside more, hunt and target shoot. And that doesn't mean you have to be a first time, but if you have a discipline where you're a shotgun shooter and you have an interest in ARs, just ask somebody that, hey, John, will you take me to the range and show me about this platform? Because they may be a little bit intimidated or whatnot. And that's even an existing person. So we try to, whether you're, a pheasant hunter, we try to say, hey, why don't you try turkey hunting, or why don't you try deer hunting? Try something new. And that goes, same thing for target shooting. Like you said, Kevin, there's so many different disciplines out there. It makes this industry fun to do, that's for sure. And like I said, it's hard to pick just one. So
it is. And you're right when you mention, somebody's a big shotgun shooter, and Lord knows, you look at the competitions across the United States, including the Olympics. You can be a specialist all your life and still not run out of stuff to do. But it's kind of cool to get into something different that maybe you haven't tried before. And you might find you've added another arrow in the quiver, so to speak.
All right. Well, going right back to conservation, another thing that Davidson's does, and, you've helped Outdoor Stewards out. You provided a product that we use for our raffle and generate some revenue, and we're able to do, some more with that, whether it's connecting with conservation videos or podcasts or come with program or whatever. So are there other things that I think you work with some other companies a little bit on conservation, or, some products that you support with them?
We're extremely involved in our industry, and that's such a light way of putting it. I mean, this is where we live. So, we're a patron member of NSSF, National Shooting Sports Foundation. We've worked with Ducks Unlimited, National Wild Turkey Federation, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. We've done some localized stuff in Arizona and North Carolina. Mainly we work at the national level, but all of these organizations we support as much as possible because it's our home. It's our industry. And, mentoring new hunters, mentoring new shooters, anything we can do to help this community, why wouldn't we? Because it's our community. So it's kind of taking care of your own family. But yeah, absolutely. We're involved at very deep levels across the board.
Yeah, that's another important point, I think, is that most folks don't realize that our industry partners have these deep connections and relationships with the conservation non-governmental organizations like ducks and turkeys and all that do that conservation work. Because, while we try to promote it, you still got to do business as usual, but it's folks on the outside don't see that connection. It's not just the excise tax. It's the the business relationships you have with those conservation organizations that makes this whole thing work. So
I'm glad you brought that word up, because I say it all the time. We're not about, here's a product, give me your money, see you later. This whole industry is run on relationships. And that's why I keep saying community, and I always talk about relationships, and it's true. I mean, everybody we work with, it's not just faceless transactions. It turns into lifelong friendships, and that's what makes this all work.
Yeah, it is amazing. You can go to a conference and stand in line for a coffee, and then, the guy in front of you, guy behind you, just say, "Hey, how's it going?" And you're fast friends. It's amazing. It really is. It's so cool. But let's just go back to Gallery of Guns for folks that may not know it, and like, where do you go, and then when you get there, what do you see, and how would you go through searching for a product that you're looking for, and sending it to wherever you want to send it? Tell folks that whole process.
It's really easy. Galleryofguns.com is the website, and when you get there, if you know specifically what you're looking for, you can do a keyword search, you can do a model number search, but we have a search engine on there where you can pick a brand, you can pick caliber, you can pick gun type, whatever it is you're looking for. You can filter it down, search and find. We call it search, find, buy. So once you find that item, okay, here's the firearm I want. We don't have click here to buy. We say click here to get a quote. And the reason for that, we don't tell our dealers what to charge. That is up to them. There's no price fixing or anything like that. But what we mean by get a quote is we say, okay, what is your zip code? And we'll show you can pick 25 miles, 50 miles, 75 miles, and we'll show you all the FFL retailers, Gallery of Guns FFL stores within that radius, and it will show you what they're going to charge you for that specific gun. And, just like anywhere else, don't go by price alone, or if that's your concern, you can. But you might find out when that list of gun stores comes up, I didn't even know this guy was in the area. I wasn't familiar with this retailer. So you're going to learn about gun stores in your area. But getting back to the specific gun, it's going to show you a list, and this is what they're going to charge you. And that charge is final. There's no extra fees. There's no transfer fee. So you decide. You use your credit card, put down a 25% deposit, and then we're going to ship that gun to the retailer that you chose. And, they'll call you, hey, your order came in. You go to that FFL retailer, you pay them the balance, and you do the federal background check. You do all that. And while you're in there, you might go, I need some cleaning supplies. I need a box of ammo. And there's your dealer. And from the other side of that FFL retailer now maybe has a new customer and can establish that relationship. But it's as easy as searching for the gun, getting a quote, picking who you want it sent to. We send it to that retailer, and then you go to that local retailer just as if, you were a walk-in customer, but you picked the gun, exact one you wanted, and now you go get it. And, just like any other firearms transaction, you do the background check, you do the paperwork, take home your new gun.
Another, I guess, ancillary benefit of that is if I get online and do get that quote, and I see there's 15 dealers near me that offer it, and I pick the one I want, I may see 4 or 5 on there I didn't know about, but now you've raised the awareness that I have more, even though they didn't get the deal on that gun, I may go check them out next time in person just because I didn't know they were there, and now I do because you sort of free marketing from y'all, because you give them, here are your options, but you also tell them, here's some dealers around you might not know about.
Yep, and that's, as a matter of fact, there's a function on our website on Gallery of Guns called Retailer Search. And if you're not even looking to order a gun from us, you can punch in your zip code and we'll show you all the gun stores in your area, and then you can go check them out yourself. One thing I do want to really emphasize is something we've had for decades is called the Guaranteed Lifetime Replacement Program. So if any firearm that goes out from Davidson's or Gallery of Guns, if there's ever a problem with that firearm, some sort of manufacturer defect, we're going to replace that gun. And we've done this on, firearms that are 10, 15 years old. We're not going to cover abuse like anybody else. But if something happens to that firearm and it's an actual defect, we're going to take care of it. We've been known to ship you a brand new gun in 48 hours. And then we deal with getting that gun fixed. And naturally, most of your major manufacturers, they stand behind their product, absolutely. But it might be a timing thing. It might be that gun's no longer manufactured. It might be, during COVID, what do we hear every day? Supply chain. So there's a lot that goes on there, but we're going to get that taken care of so you don't have to deal with it.
Well, that's great. I mean, great customer service. And John and I appreciate you coming on and explaining again, the second tier about how conservation is funded by the industry and what Davidson's is doing and what Gallery of Guns is doing. So we know galleryofguns.com. I assume you have some social media as well, and same thing with Davidson. So one more time, let folks know, where to go for Davidson's and what type of social media to follow.
Okay, if you're an FFL retailer, it's Davidson's Inc.com. If you're set up with us, you already know that. If you'd like to do business with us, just go to that website, check us out. Galleryofguns.com for the consumer. We're on X, which used to be Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and all those social channels are under Gallery of Guns. So just search for Gallery of Guns on each one of those platforms and you'll find us.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, it's been very interesting. I'm a fan. I didn't know a lot about your company before Jim and I talked when he was lining you up for as a guest, but I've looked at it online. I'm definitely interested in going to be a customer now. So appreciate everything y'all do. Appreciate you being a part of the conservation funding machine that this country has enjoyed for 100 years now. And Jim, as always, good to see you again. And to our listeners, please take a listen and certainly subscribe if you can. Look at some of this episode, some of our others, and we'll see you in the woods or on the water.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Connecting with Conservation podcast. Please do us a favor and tell your buddies, friends, family, and others about what you've learned here today. If you like what you heard, come on back anytime and listen to another episode of the Connecting with Conservation podcast.